Hello, mothers and friends. Welcome back to another episode of Carl, Her Mommy, a podcast about motherhood as we know it. I'm your host, Carlie. I'm so excited to be with you guys today. This was supposed to be a guest episode. You know, the podcast, we normally do 2 solo episodes, then 1 guest episode. But we had a little hiccup, and I didn't realize William had a 24-hour shift yesterday. So the guest we had scheduled to come on, I couldn't make it with her and we had to reschedule for next week. So stay tuned for that. We will be chatting about postpartum and prenatal exercise and making sure you're doing so safely with like very practical in the weeds tips on adjustments to make and things like that. But anyways, we're doing a solo episode and I'm actually really excited about this one because it's a topic that I like to think of myself as a little bit of an expert on. We are going to be chatting about budgeting while parenting. You know how it was when we were living on a resident salary. I was always talking about how expensive childhood and like raising kids can be, but also how hard it is to do that on a limited budget. That was a big thing that was always on my mind. I know I've talked about it on the podcast a lot. And also, I'm really excited to be here with you guys today because I am in my new little podcast studio. What I'm realizing now that I'm sitting down to record is it is a little echoey, so I'm hoping the sound quality will be all right for us. But in any event, I'm really excited because we are recording. If you could see my setup right now, I have my phone recording me, which I'm going to use to clip up like little reels. And then I have my iPad or Surface Pro recording me because I'm going to try to use that to upload to YouTube. And then I have my laptop in front of me with my like little notes and the actual podcast equipment going. So hilariously have so much going on in this room. And I'm hoping that I can make it through this smoothly with all forms of technology I'm using currently. In any event, let's dive into it because I know this is a topic that's on pretty much everyone's minds. So, parenting and just in general, raising children is expensive. It costs a lot of money and budgeting can be really hard, especially if you're on a tight budget. So I'm going to go through my top tips for how to navigate that and how to be able to raise children in a way that's affordable. And my number one biggest tip for parenting on a budget and raising kids, even though it's expensive, is do not impulse buy. I know that might seem really straightforward, but I think one of the quickest ways that we can waste money or spend money on things we don't need is making a decision to buy something impulsively. And that can be anything from like, I'm walking into Target and all of a sudden I'm in the dollar section and I'm like, oh, well, this is only $3 or only $5. And then I end up getting like $3 pumpkins and a $5 little basket to put the pumpkins in. And it's like, oh, it all seems so cheap. And I went to Target to get diapers and wipes and I end up spending $100 because I got a bunch of decor, a candle, a piece of makeup that I saw on TikTok that I was like, oh, I want to get this contour stick that I see everyone use. And all of those decisions, when they're made impulsively, add up to be a big waste of money. It's the same thing with kids stuff. Sometimes you can walk into a store and think to yourself like, oh my gosh, these little baby leggings or these little tiny booties, they're so cute. I have to get these for my kid. And you'll buy them impulsively just because they're cute without realizing like, hey, my kids don't really need new boots right now. Like they have one pair of sneakers. It's perfectly sufficient. They're easy to get on and off and that's all they really need for the season. So that's like a huge thing. And especially now that our budget is expanding and we have a different financial situation that we've ever had, meaning like a little bit more financial resources to be loosey-goosey with, I'm realizing how tempting that can be. When we had no money, I couldn't do stuff like that. Like I could not impulse buy anything because we were on a tight budget in order to just survive and make it through. And now I'm realizing how much of an impact that makes. And this is a tip that I might not have even been able to verbalize before our budget expanded because impulse buys were not even on the table for us. But if you have the financial resources that like you can do impulse buys, I think that's one of the quickest ways you are going to waste a lot of money and spend more money than you need to, especially on kids things or just like random little nicky-nacky type things. Beyond that though, I would say like say you decide to yourself, like, I want to revamp my living room. Those kind of like feelings can be pretty impulsive. It's like, I want to fix it and I want to do it now. And you can get into impulse buying something like a chair or a lamp or whatever it may be. On those big ticket items, I would also say do not impulse buy. And the reason that I'll say this is because A, if you wait a while, there's probably going to be a good sale and you can get it at a much better price. And B, the other thing is that you might change your mind. Like with a bigger ticket item, I'm talking for us, that means anything above $100. We try to be intentional about our decisions. That's another tip, like a sub tip that I could mention is like, create a threshold number where you are going to have a conversation with your spouse about whether or not you're going to buy something, because it will hold you accountable not to spend beyond that money on items in kind of a willy-nilly way. So for me, if there's anything that I want to buy and it costs more than $100, I am sitting on it and waiting on it. Typically, like that means waiting at least a week, but more often than not, it means waiting like sometimes even a month or several months to wait for that big sale. For example, we really, really want to get a frame TV and we have wanted one since we moved into our new house, but we were waiting until Black Friday to get those good sales that happen. And even though like it's tough to wait, that's a very simple way to save literally like probably $600-700 depending on like how much of a sale you can get during those times of the year for the big ticket items. Okay, so that's my first tip. That's a long one, but I think it's a really important one. Don't impulse buy. My second tip is going to be buy secondhand. And what I love about using secondhand, buying secondhand is that it can mean a lot of different things. So let's start with the free options of secondhand. Ask your friends, ask your sister, ask your cousins, whoever you know, if they have hand-me-downs. And this is especially important with kids. A lot of times parents, by the time they're on their last child, they're like, I just want to get this baby stuff out of my house, out of my sight. I don't want anything to do with it. And oftentimes, like if it's several years old or it's been used by multiple kids, they're not trying to resell it or anything like that. They're just planning on donating it. So if you can find moms who are around that season of life, maybe their kids are hitting age 5, 6, 7, and they're in your community, reach out and say, hey, are you getting rid of any baby stuff? Like I'm looking for a swing. I'm looking for a wagon to push my kids around in, like things like that that are being outgrown by other parents, and of course clothes. See if you can get them for free, like hand-me-down style. Another way you can try to find free things in your community is joining a local Buy Nothing group on Facebook. We had an amazing one in Buffalo and got some like really good stuff on there. And also we were able to give, and that feels really good too, because when you are consuming and getting something new, I think it's really good to get in the habit while we're talking about like budgeting and sustainability and how to navigate parenting. For everything you add to your house, you probably are going to want to get rid of something, because we know as parents, we can become so overstimulated with stuff. So before you make that purchase, think to yourself like, okay, I need new shoes for my baby. Obviously, if you're like thinking about having another baby, maybe you have to hold on to the prior size and keep that for the next round. But if you know you're done, say to yourself, like, I'm going to get rid of the old shoes before I bring in the new ones. And then you won't be dealing with so much clutter, so many boxes of extra stuff in storage. That's also like a really good streamlined thing to do. And when you are giving back, it feels a lot better and easier to receive, I think, or I find that like if I'm going to take from my community, from people who are giving things away, I like to also give back. So definitely look into your Buy Nothing groups and just like your actual community to see what you can find for free. If you can't find what you're looking for free, my next step would be to look at your local thrift stores. You guys know, if you follow me on Instagram at all, that I am a huge thrifter. I absolutely love thrifting. I know it's not for everyone, and it takes patience and it takes some effort and time, because it's not streamlined like just walking into the store and you're guaranteed to find what you're looking for. But I would highly recommend trying it out, right? Go to your local Goodwill, go to your Salvation Army or your community aid, whatever's in your community, and try to see if you can find what you're looking for, especially for kids' clothes. I would say things that people donate are so gently used. Like any of the toddler years and below, they're used for such a short period of time because babies and toddlers are growing so fast. So you can find really amazing stuff gently used and in nice condition for literally $1 to $2, as opposed to buying it new, sometimes for up to like $30 or $40. For example, I've gotten my kids secondhand Patagonia, North Face, really nice Cat and Jack boots for the winter, like big ticket items that do cost more money, you can find secondhand or thrifted. Nike shoes, Vans shoes, I found it all, and I would highly recommend checking there. If you aren't able to find what you're looking for specifically at your like local thrift stores, my next suggestion would be checking the Facebook Marketplace. You will have a lot of luck finding on there big ticket baby items. So cribs, strollers, swings, all of those bigger things you can often find secondhand. And again, you can kind of vet the quality of it. Like you'll be able to tell if it's in good condition or not. And also a lot of times you can ask people, can I come check it out before I decide to purchase it? So that's another great way to buy secondhand that I would highly recommend. The last thing I'll mention is things like Poshmark or Depop or whatever it is. And those probably more for like clothing or accessories, but especially for yourself. If you're looking for clothes, that's a great way as an adult to find your clothes. I also thrift my clothes, almost all of them. This is actually a Free People sweater that I thrifted that I'm wearing today. But yeah, so I would highly recommend trying to do secondhand. That's my second biggest tip for saving money is don't pay full price. See if you can find it secondhand. It's more sustainable. It's better for the environment. And I think it's just better for the community in the sense that it gets you involved and it kind of like cuts out the big man. Okay, next tip. Really do like a mental check-in with yourself. Is this something that's worth splurging on? So this tip is more about like the mental exercise of things. I know I briefly mentioned the like have a number in mind of if I'm going to spend this month much. For us, like I said, $100 or more. Really sit down and have a conversation with yourself and or your spouse about whether or not it's worth it and if it's a necessity at the time. And another thing I'll say is like, I'm going to give a couple examples. So, excuse me, with children's toys, you hear Magnetiles are so good. They're so much fun. I want to get those for my kids. And the brand name Magnetiles is like the go-to, the best of the best. That's what's supposed to be the one to buy. Well, in that circumstance, I would ask yourself, like, do I actually have to buy Magnetiles brand, or are the Picasso tiles that are 40% cheaper at the outset just as good, serve the same function, serve the same purpose, and will be as much fun for my kids? And then make your decision from there. So for example, for me, Magnetiles versus Picasso tiles. We ended up doing Picasso tiles. They're amazing. They work so good. And it was very, very, for us, worth it to go with the more budget-friendly option. In another example, you can sometimes find Magnetiles at like Aldi. And those are like hollow and they are like quite different than the Picasso tile Magnetile. And we have been gifted those before. And they really don't work as well. Like for young kids, they're too flimsy and they flop around and then it becomes a frustrating thing where they can't really use the toy. So what I would say is to like check in with yourself about what price point is actually like still serving the same function and working as well, and go with that. And the reason I mentioned this is sort of like looped into my second point, which is quality over quantity, right? Like you don't want to just buy the cheapest thing because it's cheapest and then have like a bunch of junk sitting around that's not serving its purpose. The thing that I think is a really big question to ask yourself is, what quality items can I have around for my kids that will last from child to child or for a long period of time? So for us, I'm going to give another example of splurging on a high quality big ticket item, the Pikler triangles. If you aren't familiar with it, it's like a wooden triangle that has a ladder and slides. Sometimes they have like ours, you can flip around. It looks like a little rock climbing wall or like little stairs, and you can configure them in different ways and they can be used for years for active and imaginative and open-ended play with the kids. Those are very expensive, at least by my standards. I think ours was something around $300. But what I will say is if you invest in a piece like that, instead of, for example, say your kid's really into Paw Patrol and they're begging for the Paw Patrol cars that you can buy at Target. Those aren't cheap. Like they can be like $30 or $40 for a set of these Paw Patrol toys. And if you get a few of them, because that's what your kid's really into, all of a sudden you're looking at like spending $100, and then 6 months later, they're over it. They don't like Paw Patrol anymore. Now their favorite show is Octonauts, and the Paw Patrol toys are sitting collecting dust someplace. Whereas if you just spent a little bit more on the front end, getting something like a Pikler triangle or a Nugget or a kitchen set or whatever little toy or thing you're looking into, if you'd spent more money at the outset on it, in the long run, you'd get way more of money's worth per time your child spent with it. And I think that also goes for things like high quality clothing items or shoes, especially if you're going to have multiple kids. For us, one thing that we have done, we've been gifted also from the generosity of my aunts, and is investing in high quality jackets. So for example, we lived in Buffalo, New York for 4 years. It's extremely cold there. You need to have high quality gear. And we did Patagonia so that we would size up 1 year, and the boys would be in those jackets for 2 years each. And Liam's jackets have been passed down to Jude, and they are all still in pristine quality and working so well. And we'll easily be able to use them for any future kids we might have, God willing. And so splurges like that are very worth it because you are getting your money's worth. The next huge tip that I have for budgeting, which I think is really hard for some people depending on what habits you are in, is eat out less and do not order your coffee out. And I know that like ordering coffee out on occasion as a treat is like an awesome thing to do for self-care. But at baseline, if you can cut out those extra expenses, those weekly expenses of eating out, say you're eating out 2 or 3 times a week, or if you're a working parent and you're buying your lunch while you're out for work, or if you're like picking up your coffee on the way to work every day or on your way to preschool drop off, ask yourself, can I do this at home? Can I make it at home and make it cheaper? That is a huge way that you're spending extra money. And my second piece of advice that goes hand in hand with that is if you're trying to spend less money on food, is make sure you are meal planning for the week before you go grocery shopping. So this used to be one of our big money wasters when we first got married, was I would not meal plan for the week. I would grocery shop. I'd buy a bunch of different things that just like looked good and seemed great. And then I would go to make meals and I didn't have everything I needed. So I'd end up taking multiple trips to the grocery store, buying more than we needed. And at worst, wasting food, which obviously is horrible and we don't want to do. Not only does it waste money, but that's just a bad practice. Like, right? We don't want to waste our food. So one of the things that has saved us a lot of money and helped us to keep to our monthly budget is meal planning. If you know exactly what ingredients you need, look in your pantry, find out what you don't have on hand and what you have to pick up, and know, at least my goal is I plan 4 meals of the week. So Monday through Thursday, I have our meals planned. When it comes to the weekend, Friday nights is normally ordering out night for us. We do budget that in as 1 night a week so that I have a night off of cooking. And then Saturday and Sunday, we kind of wing it and we grocery shop again over the weekend. So we will like just pick more spur of the moment or eat leftovers. And this has saved us hundreds of dollars, like literally hundreds. If you go to the grocery store and you keep to your list, and that can be really hard too, but shop the sales at the grocery store, right? So if you can be flexible, for example, with your vegetables, see what vegetables might be on a sale. Or if, for example, you know you always eat white rice and you see that the white rice that you always buy is on a sale, shop the sales. But beyond that, stick only to your list. Like, don't fall into the trap of seeing like, ooh, there's seasonal pumpkin Oreos. Like, I'm going to buy those this week. No, unless you accounted for that, you wrote it on your list and you said, I want to have Oreos as a dessert this week for bedtime snack or whatever it is. Don't buy it. Just try really hard to exercise that self-control and not pick it up. And sticking to your budget in that way will help you so much with keeping costs low and keeping parenting costs manageable, because we all know kids, for example, like eat so much fruit. It's so expensive. Like buying groceries when you have small kids can become cripplingly expensive between the pouches, the yogurts, the fruit, the special little snacks that they like. It can be so hard. So sticking to a grocery list and having a meal plan going into it will help you save so much money. It, like I said, saved us hundreds of dollars a month going through and really being intentional about our spending around groceries and food. My last big tip is to ask yourself before you buy literally anything is this impacting the quality of my life? And for me, as a parent with young children who is trying to do it in a way that's somewhat affordable or accessible in a world that's incredibly expensive and it feels nearly impossible to do, is this going to add quality to my life? If not, I don't need it. I don't want it. So for us, quality adders, the big things that we incorporate into our budget that actually make my life better, make my life easier, and make me happier are big ticket things. Like, for example, a gym membership, getting out, getting exercise, going to the sauna, doing something that I know is improving my health, improving my quality of life, and allowing me to show up better for my kids. Babysitters, giving myself the space to get things done, to take time for self-care is so much more worth it to me than, for example, like going to Marshall's and buying 3 new candles for the season and some random decor because it was cute. Like, those things add up. And if you can make the shift to say, I'm going to take that $60 and put it to a 2 days this week of having a babysitter come for 2 hours, and I get 4 hours to myself where I have peace, clarity, I can do yoga, I can clean, I can fold my laundry in peace without someone on my, like, dragging on my leg, that is going to bring me so much more joy than a candle. And I know that sounds silly, but like, think about the candle. Okay, yes, candles can be really nice and like add scent to your house and make it feel warm and cozy, but like, you can take your leftover apple peels and orange peels and sprinkle some cinnamon and put it on the stove and make a little potpourri, and your house will smell nice and it's free. So, asking yourself that question, is this bringing quality to my life, can really shift the way that you're spending your money. And I really do think sacrifices on things like clothes and keeping up with the trends and new shoes and manicures, pedicures, maybe getting your hair done more, things like that. If that is what brings you joy and adds quality to your life, by all means do it. And also, like, everybody's budget is different, which I should have said at the outset of this episode, but everything is relative to your own budget and your own circumstances. But I think even like no matter your financial resources, it is very good to be mindful about your spending and to be intentional with where your money is going, because money is power, and where we spend our money is like how the world becomes the way it is. And consumerism and getting sucked into this idea that we have to buy is, that's big corporations like getting to us, right? They are trying to trick us into thinking that more stuff equals a better life. And that's why this question of, is this bringing quality to my life, is so huge when you spend your money. I think that being forced on, I've talked about this on a TikTok, but I can't remember if I've talked about it on here. But William's salary was around $55,000 a year before taxes in New York State, which we have very high taxes. And being forced to learn how to live as a family of 4 on that budget really, really, really has made me become incredibly intentional about where I'm putting my money. And now that our resources are expanding, I am seeing how easy it is to spend more just because you have more, right? And some of that is the fact that we just bought a house and we do need to furnish it and we do need to make it a home. And so I am like giving myself grace there, and I have a monthly budget for like what I will allow us to spend each month on things to make our house a home. But beyond that, I'm trying not to live beyond the means that we lived in residency, because as hard as it was to make certain sacrifices, like for example, we couldn't afford very much childcare, we could not afford a nice vacation, things like that, which I would like to incorporate into our life, that was hard to make those sacrifices. But beyond that, like, we lived a very comfortably day-to-day life. We had quality food, we all had plenty of clothes, we had nice stuff, and we were able to do it on a $55,000 a year budget. And if we could do it then, I think we should be able to do it now. And I feel like very empowered by forcing myself to come up with that monthly number and stick to it. I was thinking about like sitting down with you guys and sort of like going through like number by number what we would spend in a month on what, just to have a concrete something to show you of how we actually did it, crunching the numbers. We used Excel files. But I think because everyone's circumstance is so personalized, that doesn't really make sense. And also I want to like refer you to other people, because I'm not actually an expert on budgeting, right? Like, I'm just a mom who has some tricks she's learned along the way. But I would definitely look into some podcasts. I really should have done this before this episode, but there are a few Instagram accounts and podcasts that I listened to when I was trying to hone in on our budget in our first year of residency that were really helpful. So that can be a great place to start too, if you are trying to figure out within your own circumstances what numbers actually make sense. And also, the last thing that I will mention is the beauty of getting a financial advisor. And also at baseline, like I know that that's not accessible to everyone, or like maybe doesn't feel like it's the right step, right? When we weren't, there were times where like we did not have a financial advisor, but getting a financial advisor was the biggest thing that made me feel confident in raising kids and having a family and doing it on a budget that makes sense for us, because our financial advisor is an expert in crunching numbers. Like he gets us down to those monthly numbers. And also, like, now that we're making more money and we want to invest and save and have certain financial goals throughout our life, having somebody who is a professional tell you exactly what those numbers are. Honestly, the however many $100 it costs to get a financial advisor, the piece that comes from knowing those numbers and knowing you're making good decisions for us like outweighs anything. Like that's a quality of life over like question, like if I spend this money, am I improving my quality of life? Like for me, spending money on a financial advisor, 1,000% worth it, because my quality of life went from high level of anxiety about money to peace around money. Because if you have somebody who can help walk you through it, you are empowered, and then you know you're making good decisions. And that's like on more of a macro level, but I would also highly recommend that. And I think that's a great way to navigate budgeting and money as a parent with children in the world trying to figure out how the frick to afford life, because it's so expensive. And we all know that. So anyways, I really hope this was helpful for you guys. As always, I think we should wrap up the episode with our gratitude segment. So if everyone wants to just pause and take a moment to call to mind something they're grateful for today. Okay, so today I am so grateful for this podcasting space. Sitting down with you guys in a space that's actually like for me, for this podcast, for our community, that's allowing me to start creating reels and hopefully like just meeting more of you moms is what I'm super grateful for. I also am grateful for our babysitters and William, who watch the kids so that I can paint this room. And I'm just like really excited for the fact that I'm honoring myself and giving myself a space, because I'm worth it. Like I'm worth it to take up this space. This podcast is worth it. And yeah, that's what I'm super grateful for today. And I'm grateful for you all, because of course, if I didn't have this podcast, I probably would have never been motivated to make a little room just for myself like this. So anyways, as always, if you enjoyed the podcast, please go ahead, rate, review, subscribe, follow on YouTube, because this video is going to be uploaded on on my tablet up to YouTube. And also follow on for more on social media, TikTok and Instagram at Carl Her Mommy, and we will chat again next week.